I am so excited to be quilting my Heart Pop quilt by Tracy Mooney of So Supportive and Maywood Studios. I used the pattern with my own fabric because it was what I had on hand in the time available to me, and I absolutely had a blast piecing it, and I'm having so much fun quilting it. I wanted to share how I was doing that. The Heart Pop pattern, when you're done, all of your blocks finish at 5 inches. And I have a stencil. It's an ABC circle stencil from Full Line Stencils that has a heart and a circle on it. And so I'm using the heart. I thought it would work well. I don't use a lot of purple in my quilts, and even if I did use a lot of purple in my quilts, I don't use a lot of purple thread. Purple fabrics are really hard to match with thread, so I typically would use gray, and that was my plan until I opened up my bin of thread. Most of the thread I have, I buy in lines of thread. So I have an entire rack of Wonderful Confetti. I have an entire rack of Wonderful 2D. This is a Superior Omni variegated thread. I don't think it has a name, but it is color 9019. And it matched my quilt really well. So I only use about 10 bobbin colors to match the threads I normally stitch with, but I did have this spool of DecoBob from Wonderfill, which is an 80 weight polyester. This is, let's see, I'm trying to see what weight this thread is. This is a 40 weight polyester thread, and this is a spun polyester, so it actually looks matte. It has a matte finish. This is an 80 weight polyester that has a bit of a sheen to it, and that's what I use in my bobbin. A thinner thread in the bobbin makes my bobbin last longer. I work on a home sewing machine which has a little teeny tiny bobbin, so the thinner the thread, the more yardage I get on there, and the fewer times I have to change my bobbin. So this is the thread I'm using. I really love the colors. This is the stencil I'm using. Now, I quilt from top to bottom of a quilt. Right now, this is actually the bottom of the top. So, quilting from the bottom to the top. So my hearts are going down in lines. I've already quilted the one half of the quilt where the hearts go from top to bottom. So these are going to go upside down. So I'm turning the heart upside down on the stencil. I have drawn a line in the middle of each of my blocks. And that way I can match the center line of the stencil onto the chalk line. And what I'm doing is I'm checking to see that it's about a ½ an inch from the seam line. So this one kind of matches the one next to it, kind of matches the one next to it. There's a heart in each block, but it's not like perfect laser level straight, and it doesn't need to be. The next thing I'm doing is grabbing my Pounce pad, and this is blue Pounce. It's called Barely Blue, which is a lighter blue. It's going to show up like white on the black, and it's going to show up with a little bit of color on the purples, and then I will have to wash it off. This isn't an iron off. So agitate the pad so that the powder is flowing freely, and then I'm going to go onto my stencil and make my heart. It leaves a little bit of powder overall. It gets a little smudgy, but once I wash it, it all goes away. Right now, when I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, look at all, it looks like these little white, although it's blue, fingerprint dusty things all over it. And then when the quilt is done, I'll wash it, and people go, oh my word, you're amazing. And I'll go, you're right, it's true. I apologize for the noise. I'm in a blizzard right now, and my husband is doing battle with the driveway. This is the time I have available to film this video, and I don't have the heart to ask my husband to not make the noise, so I apologize if you hear the snowblower going on in the background. I'm grateful to have power, and I'm grateful that my husband is taking care of this terrible weather for me so I can stay inside and quilt. I'm going to mark several hearts, 3 or 4 of them. If I mark a whole line going down the quilt, the fact that the quilt is in my lap and is going to rub against me, the powder can wear off it before I get to it, so I only do a couple at a time. That's enough to get me started. I'm using my darning foot on my machine. I'm using some Batt Scooters to help me push the fabric, so I can put my hands on them and it will push the fabric for me instead of me having to grip the fabric or push down extra hard. Needle down, needle up, pull up the bobbin thread. I'm going to stitch down to the beginning of the heart. I'm going to stitch around the side with the swirl in it. I'm going to trace the swirl back to the point. Now, it's not going to be perfect because I did it. If I wanted it to be perfect, I'd do it on a computerized long arm. But it's not going to be perfect. You're going to be able to see two distinct lines here. It kind of has a little ribbony effect. And then when I get to the bottom, I'm going to stitch up the other side to the point, stitch down to the bottom of the next heart, and repeat it. Now, I could have chosen to make one heart with a swirl on this side, one heart with a swirl on that side, and alternate them, but I didn't. And I've already quilted half the quilt. I love the way it's coming out, so no regrets. Now, following a stencil line is just kind of a general guideline. I'm not going to hit the line. I'm not going to hit the mark. I'd rather be smooth than accurate. So if you can see I've missed the stencil here. The stitching is off the tip of it here, and I'm fine with that because the mark is going to go away and no one will ever know. And even if they do know and say, oh, I think you missed the mark there, I'm like, ooh, good eye, here's a sticker, go away. Because I'm making the quilt to bring me joy while I'm sewing at home on a snow day. Back to the beginning, come around the other side and into the next one. Now this is the point where the stencil's not as visible on the camera. So it kind of shows up as white on here, kind of shows up with a little color. Pounce comes in white, blue, pink. I think the blue is the best option for this one. I can see it with my eye better than you can see it on the camera. It is enough. So here I have finished that one column of quilting, and here's how a couple of rows of it, a couple of columns of it look together. It looks really, really cool. So I'm going to move one row over, draw my line in the center of this column, work my way back to the top, stitch another column, and another in the next block, and the next block, and the next block, until I get to the end of the quilt. My sister's favorite color is purple. I know she's going to steal this quilt from me, so I did add a little border on it to make it a size that I know that she'll use. So the quilt's a little, I added a border to the original pattern. So I'm going to do one row of hearts in each column of my quilt until it's done. I've found using stencils to really take the pressure off my brain. It gives me an idea of where I'm quilting without the pressure of having to be perfect. I also quilt in columns, so I quilt from top to bottom. If I'm free motioning all around and trying to edge quilt on a quilt, I can get lost. So the stencils really help with that. It takes the pressure off. It gives me a direction to go, that I'm moving from top to bottom of the quilt. And I can sit here with a book or a podcast going in my ears and just happily quilt away, no matter what's happening out there.